Right, tell me what happened. I assume you've clicked on this video because you've just had a substantial gambling loss, or you've just caused yourself some form of harm. Most likely that be financial because of a gambling addiction, or just because of a particularly bad session of gambling, and you feel incredibly low about it. You don't really know how to cope and what to do next. I start an awful lot of my videos, as any regular viewer of the channel would know, with the sort of idea that if you've just had a massive gambling loss, this is what to do. And normally what I'll do, which I'm not going to do today, normally what I'll do is I'll go on and I will explain about, using this as a motivational launch point. This is a motivation to get yourself into recovery. This is motivation to put blocks in place and do all this sort of practical stuff. And yes, there's certainly value to that. And maybe after you've watched this video, maybe tomorrow or whatever, have a look at some other videos on the channel. But what I want to do really now is address exactly that, the here and now. I was looking at my YouTube analytics the other day, and a substantial, more than normal and more than I can imagine is standard for YouTube channels, a huge amount of my views come at very early hours of the morning, or certainly late in the evening, and are particularly prolific at weekends. And I can understand this. These are the sorts of times that I used to be reeling from a very bad, very negative gambling session. These are the times that I would be going on to, gambling recovery forums or looking at gambling videos on YouTube, because I'd reached a bit of a point of desperation, really, an acceptance of my addiction, and a sort of vacant unknowing of, well, what the hell do I do now? And that's what I want to talk about in this video. Firstly, I think the most important thing to realise is that you are not alone, as the big thumbnail on this video would tell you. You are certainly not alone. If you look down here somewhere, you'll see that my channel has over 4,000 subscribers now, so thank you very much to anyone who subscribed. But more importantly, what that means is that there are 4,000 people, and many more who aren't subscribed, who are looking for help with their gambling addiction. Now, people certainly don't come to this channel for my stunning good looks or my charm, charisma, or indeed the production value of these videos. So the reason people come to these videos is to hear from someone who's been there, seen that and done that, and to maybe get some pointers, some advice, some help, not just from me, but also from everyone else down in the comments, our community, who have experienced much the same as what you're going through right now. First thing you've got to do, and this is probably one of the harder things to do, is accept what's just happened. You've got to take stock of, what you've just done. Have you just, it could be anything, right? Maybe you've been in the bookies tonight after work and you've done all your wages. Maybe it's 2 o'clock in the morning where you are, and you've been up for hours and hours and hours drinking and gambling at an online casino. All these scenarios, by the way, just for your reference, are very, very familiar to me. All right. Maybe you put a bet on the football this afternoon. You lost, and that spiraled into a football betting rabbit hole or a sports betting rabbit hole. And again, it's silly o'clock in the morning, and you're betting on the Estonian third division because, well, that's all there is left to bet on. All these scenarios I can relate to, but the same thing applies. Is we've come to a point where we've accepted that this is shit. This is not what we should be doing, and we have a bit of a problem. So take stock of the damage you've caused. All right. Now, I hope, and please don't shoot me down in flames for this, but I genuinely hope that the damage you have caused yourself is solely financial. All right. Most gambling sessions end, and at that point the gambling session ends, the damage you have done thus far is financial. Now, the reason I say the damage you've done thus far is because actually a lot more of the damage I did to myself in terms of the wider picture and my life as a whole occurred after the gambling session. All right. So if you've just finished a losing gambling session, you just lost a load of money, at this moment in time, the chances are that the harm you've done is just financial. All right. What would normally happen is I'd do that, and then I wouldn't get any sleep. I'd argue with the wife. I'd call in sick for work, and there would be a perpetuation, a snowball effect of negative consequences from the back of a negative gambling session. All right. And at the moment, your problem is probably solely financial. Okay. Now, that's not to say it's not a significant financial problem, and we'll deal with that in a moment. You may have it may be that you got paid today for the month and you've just lost all your wages and you can't pay rent and bills and stuff. All right. So I'm not belittling the situation you might find yourself in, because I've been there. But what I'm saying is it's very important to draw a line in the sand now, okay, work out what damage you've done, and only what damage you've done up until this point, and not what further damage you could potentially do to the wider picture off the back of the feelings that you're experiencing right at this moment. Now, the best way to do this, I've found, is to think about a solution. Okay. Now, let's supposing that I'm right and you've just lost a whole load of money and you're going to have things that aren't going to get paid this month. There will be a solution, and I can assure you this from a position of someone who's been there, has seen it and done it. Now, it may be difficult, all right? No one said this is going to be easy, but there is normally a way that most financial issues can be sorted. Right, you might not be able to pay your rent, okay? So it might be that tomorrow you have to get in touch with your landlord or the housing association or however you pay for the roof over your head, and explain that you'll be unable to make the payment this month, or certainly unable to make the payment this month on time. Now, you will not be the first. There will be teams, certainly in the big banks, if you've got a mortgage or whatever, there will be whole groups of people whose entire job is based around formulating payment plans and dealing with people who are unable to make payments, particularly at the moment when we're suffering a bit of a financial crisis. Okay, so there will be a solution to that. The same can be said for utilities, the same can be said for all sorts of things. There'll be other things, less essential things, okay, that maybe you've got direct debits coming out in the morning and you're not able to pay them. Well, cancel them. If it's not an essential core expense, rent, mortgage, council tax, whatever it is, depending on obviously where you live, all right? If it's non-essential, cancel it. Now, this isn't financial advice, by the way, this is what I did. That will buy you some time. By the time the direct debit doesn't go out and bounces, comes back, they write you a letter, they contact you to say you haven't paid this direct debit, you can then, when your head's a bit clearer, all right, when the mist of this sort of horrible gambling loss has lifted, you can then deal with that in a much, much more stable, much more practical way. You can contact them. In some cases, in some instances, with some organisations, it's good to be honest. I wouldn't recommend necessarily you tell your landlord that you've got a gambling addiction, because they're going to suddenly lose a little bit of faith in where their next rent payment's coming from. But if it's a phone bill or something like that, again, if it's a big organisation, you won't be the first. But this buys you a bit of time. It buys you a bit of time. They're not going to cut you off straight away. Get some breathing space, wait for them to contact you and deal with it. Now, there might be an opportunity, depending on, what sort of support network you've got around you in terms of sort of partner, friends, family, whatever. There might be an opportunity for you to borrow some money from someone, or indeed somewhere, some organisation. I would say if this is the route you choose, then great. Okay, this is a great way at this point of providing yourself some sort of mental clarity. Okay, for drawing a line under this situation. But for whatever you do, if you do borrow money, be that from a human, a person you know, someone in your network, or from a bank or a loan company or whatever, borrow only what you need. Work out what money you're going to need for the month, all right, and just borrow that amount. Don't borrow extra. Spare money, as we know, and as you probably experienced, is absolute kryptonite to a gambling addict. So only borrow what you need and ensure you can pay it back as soon as is humanly possible. And make sure if you borrow that money, it goes exactly where it needs to go now. All right, even if that means making payments before they're actually due. It doesn't matter. That credit will sit in your account, and then when the direct debit was due to come out, it will just come off your balance. So that'd be fine. All right, but do that now. Now you've got a solution. Okay, and it doesn't come that easy. I know I just sort of whipped through that in a couple of minutes, and I appreciate some people don't have that surrounding, support network around them. It might be you could go to someone like Citizens Advice, you might be able to get a crisis loan, but like I say, most organisations will have experienced people unable to pay direct debits, unable to pay rent or mortgages or whatever. As long as it's not a consistent month after month thing, it shouldn't cause you a major, major drama. And from this point, you can progress. The money you've lost, that's gone. You're not getting that back. Don't even think about trying to get it back, because if you did, even if you won, Okay, the chances are you're not going to win, you're just going to lose more money. But if you try and use the same problem that got you into the situation to get you out of it, even if you win now, okay, you will continue to gamble. You will lose it again tomorrow. It would just be a loan from the betting company. So don't even use that, or don't even consider using that as, you know, a method of recovery. And like I say, if you do manage to borrow some money to fix the short-term financial shortfall, you know, make sure that goes on what it's supposed to go on. Now, of course, your problems may not all be, you know, totally financial. Okay, maybe you have had an argument with your wife, maybe you've fallen out with a friend, maybe you've let someone down, maybe you've called in sick to work, whatever. Okay, but again, there's still possible that you can formulate a plan around this, and this may open lines of communication with people who will become part of your support network. I, for one, spoke in the end to my wife, or my now wife. Okay, and she became a great support in my recovery. I actually spoke to my boss. Thankfully, I work for a small company. I'm in direct contact with the owner of the company, who's my boss, and I spoke to him about the problem I had. He then provided me with a short-term forward on my wages for the next month, an advance, on my wages for the next month. That fixed multiple problems in one, but also he was actually quite strict with me, and he got in touch with my partner, and they arranged getting paid into her account. You know, that's obviously not going to be a possibility for people who work in big organisations. But again, it's a case of finding a solution to the immediate problem. Think about it. It's not always going to be easy, but make a plan, write it down, and then what you can do is take a step back and wait for the fog to subside. Wait for that anger, that height of emotions, that big rush of endorphins you've had from this gambling session to subside, and then you can take action on the plan. All right, so make the plan now, and if it is 3 o'clock in the morning, if you've just come off the back of a horrible gambling binge, maybe, you know, coupled with alcohol or whatever, and you're lying on the sofa in your pants with a laptop burning a hole in your chest because you've been on the casinos for ages. Yeah, I know I'm painting a bit of a vivid picture, but, you know, just to give you an idea, I've been there. Then make a plan, just make some very, very brief bullet points, and that will allow this to come out of your head, to not occupy your headspace tonight. You can then get some sleep and then readdress it in the morning. Just a word of warning, if that is indeed anything like the scenario you're in, you will still wake up tomorrow morning feeling like you've been punched in the stomach. You know, you're not going to be able to escape that horrible sinking gambling hangover feeling. But at least you'll be able to address this fresh, you know, with newly found mental clarity, with a plan, and you can start to repair the damage you've caused before your brain starts to spiral. Last point, if you don't address the damage you've done to this point, not any future potential damage, but if you don't address the damage you've done to this point, think about it and make a plan, okay, not only will it continue to swill around in your head, but you'll also maybe reach the point I reached, which I can't think of a better term for, except the fuck it approach, which is where you've done so much money, you're just happy to go and basically lose anything you've got left. You feel like you're worthless, you feel like you've hit rock bottom. As we discussed before, rock bottom does have a basement. But you feel like you've hit rock bottom, you feel things can't get any worse, so you think, fuck it, I'm going to finish off that bottle of Jack Daniels I've got in the cupboard, and I'm just going to deposit my last £500 or £200 or 20 quid or whatever it is you've got left, all right, even though if that's earmarked for something really important. You know, maybe if that's for your rent going out the next day, you know, or whatever. And you lose that as well because you think, fuck it, the whole situation's helpless. And that's possibly the worst mentality you can get into. The whole situation is helpless because it's not. It's not easy, but it's not helpless. And the fact there's so many people that watch these videos, there's so many people who subscribe and talk to each other in the comments section implies that you are not alone. All right? Your recovery will go through all sorts of ups and downs. And what you're experiencing right at this moment, if you have come to this video off the back of a substantial loss, your recovery, this is just a plot point on it. All right, it's not a great one, it's not a fun one, it's not the best plot point to be at. But if you plan your recovery, if you chart your recovery, this is literally one point in your recovery. And everyone watching this video and everyone subscribed to this channel and millions of people across the earth, okay, are somewhere on a graph of recovery. You may be at the lowest point on that graph, but you're on that graph. And if you deal with it now, you accept what's gone is gone, you make a plan and you act on it, then you can be at the much better, higher, more sunshine and rainbows end of that graph in due course, all right? Just think about yourself this time in a year's time, okay? Don't worry about tomorrow. You're still going to feel shit tomorrow, all right? You're not going to make any progress overnight except for addressing the immediate problems. You can't fix the history of gambling overnight. So you still feel a bit shit tomorrow, but in a year's time you can feel a lot better. You may not have repaid your debts, you may not have fixed all the problems you've caused. It doesn't happen that quickly, but you'll be in a much better situation and you'll feel much, much better for acting on it now. And if you do want to act on it now, there's loads of videos on this channel about taking action, blocks and all that sort of stuff, which is why I haven't gone into it again today. Most importantly, stay safe, stay sane. I always say it's become a bit of a cliched thing, but please do look after yourself in the immediate term. All right, it's not probably as catastrophic as you think it is. All right, so just be sensible, make a plan, do what you can now, okay, and then readdress it once the fog's lifted, once you've got a bit more clarity of mind, and take action to fix the immediate problem before you lose your mind and cause yourself any more. Please do take care of yourself. All the best.